Today we're talking all about how to do a squat. Here we go. A squat is one of the most important moves that you can learn to do in life. It's actually extremely functional. Every time we get in and out of a chair, on and off the couch, or on and off the toilet, we're doing a squat. And research even shows us that the ability to do a squat is tied to our longevity. So today I'm going to show you first how to do a squat properly. And then second, I'm going to show you some tips and some exercises that you can do to help improve your ability to do a squat. So first, let's go through the actual form of doing a squat exercise. So you're going to have your feet shoulder distance apart. So this is hip distance right here. It's a little bit more narrow actually. I want you shoulder distance apart here and then just slightly turned out. All right, so you have a slight turnout of your feet. So this is going to be where we start. And if you have balance issues at all, just be close to a kitchen counter or a chair or a wall. That is absolutely fine. So I'm going to go to the side to show you the rest here. So when we go down into a squat, you're sticking your booty here. Your hips go back behind you. So that's one of the keys. It's not straight up and down. Sometimes we'll use this in exercise, but that's not what we're doing today. Today, we're sitting back and down, like you're actually gonna sit down into a chair and come back up, okay? Arms can be at your hips. You can have them here in front of you if that feels best, or like I said, if this is new to you, please hang on to something. So now let's go through the form of it. So like I said, you go back. It's this hinging at the hips right here. That's the first part of the motion, is to take that pelvis back. And I do not want any kind of tuck. Do not squeeze your buns. Don't grip your glutes. Don't tuck your pelvis at all. One of the keys is you actually have to let your sit bones come apart and stick that pelvis out behind you. You're almost getting like a little bit of a arch or a back bend in your lower back. All right, so that's one thing that happens. Another thing is you're keeping the knees kind of tracking over about your second or third toe. So you really want to make sure your knees don't fall in towards each other or go out too far. And you want to think about the weight being more into your heels. So those are the actions that are happening with the squat. You decide how low you go. So many times I'll teach a squat when I teach exercise, and you'll see me go down about to this 90-degree angle, but I encourage you to go down less if you need to. Maybe you're starting just right here, right? And that's completely fine. But those are the components that you need for a squat. The feet shoulder distance apart, slightly turned out. You're keeping the knees tracking over the toes, just in that alignment, but you stick your tail back so the knees don't come forward too much. The weight goes back into the heels. You're letting the sit bones come apart. So you're kind of almost just letting the abs come out a little bit. Again, you're not gripping, so don't grip anywhere. Let it open up. That's one thing I know we're not used to, but it's gonna help. And then come back up. Let's do one more like that. So start to bend at the hips, you bend at the knees. You're again kind of tipping that pelvis a little bit so that you can open the sit bones, and then you come back up. Now, from there, I know there's a few issues that we're gonna address when it comes to things that might limit your squat. One thing we're gonna talk about today is getting knee pain in a squat. And then the other thing we're going to talk about is how to do a squat when you have a prolapse. So let's talk about knee pain first. And there's many different reasons that you could have knee pain. The most common one I see as a physical therapist is something called chondromalacia, or just pain in that anterior knee and behind the kneecap, right? It's still important to be able to do a squat. So first off, I recommend finding strength in other ways for your legs. And you can even find some of my other videos to strengthen your hips and your legs. So the stronger you are in your hips, the better off you are going to be. That will help the tracking of your knees a lot, to be nice and strong in those hip muscles. A couple other tips when you again are maybe in a class of mine or somewhere else and they want you to do a squat. First off, do not be afraid to just do a smaller motion. right? That is key. Really get that motion and the strength of the legs down, doing both. Another trick that I have that helps me and my clients quite a bit is getting a resistance loop. I'll have a link below of the kind that I use. But what happens is you can put that loop up above your knees like so. Then you set up yourself in the exact same way and you're pushing slightly out into the loop and you come down into your squat like this. And what it does is it forces the outer hip and outer leg muscles to work, and it helps get that kneecap into a better position, which then decreases your pain. So this is one of my favorite ways to actually strengthen the hips and help take some of that pain out of your kneecaps. So I'll have some resources for workouts to help to strengthen the hips and for this resistance loop below. One more key to being able to do a squat is hip mobility. So we get really tight in the hips, which actually don't allow us to go down as far. So this is an exercise that you can practice to help with that hip mobility. You'll have a chair and you're gonna have your foot up on the chair and you simply lean forward as far as you can and then press back. So what you're doing is really working into that hip range of motion while also strengthening your hips. That's mobility. It's deepening the range, but strengthening you in that range. So doing 10 or so of these a day, or even to warm up before your squat, can also really help. All right, now I want to talk about prolapse, which you all know I have a lot of personal experience with. And there are some thoughts out there that I have seen from clients that they should never do a squat when they have a prolapse. But again, the problem with that is that you aren't functional. If you can't do a squat feeling safe and strong, you're going to be very limited in life with what you feel safe doing. I want you to be able to maintain your balance and stay strong and safe throughout life. So let's talk about what we need in a prolapse to do a squat safely. We need hip mobility, which I just touched on. So I'm going to give you an exercise for that. You have to be able to get lots of motion in the hip. You also need pelvic mobility. I'm going to tell you why all of this is important. And you need mobility up in your thoracic spine. And let me tell you why. When you are tight any of those places, when you have a prolapse, you automatically kind of want to grip and tuck your pelvis. Problem is that causes more downward pressure and it's going to make your prolapse worse. Then if you try to kind of squat like that, it's causing even more downward pressure and making that prolapse come out even more. What we need is to be able to release the pelvis back, have strong and mobile hips, be nice and open in that upper spine so we're not rounding and tucking, but we're here. And then you'll find that you can do a squat safely. So let me show you some exercises to work on daily to help with that. First is the same exercise I showed a moment ago, this hip mobility exercise. So getting into the hips. And I have entire workouts focused on hip mobility that you could do every day to help as well. But if you're just looking for something to start with, this is a really nice one, doing about 10 on each side. So that's going to be an important piece to start to get you ready to do a squat feeling safe while you do it. Next, we're going to come down onto the ground. So it's really important that we stay very open and mobile when we have a prolapse in our thoracic spine. It helps lift everything up off the pelvis and takes pressure off the pelvic floor. So you're gonna sit with your legs out straight, mat distance apart, hands behind your head. You're sitting up as tall as you can with good posture here. And you're gonna inhale, rotate to one side, exhale, center, inhale, rotate the other side, exhale, center. And this is like I said, a really important one throughout life, especially when you have a prolapse, to really stay open in that upper spine. And it's something you wouldn't think of, but for myself, I do this exercise daily and really focus on hip mobility to help stay strong and feel free in my body, even with my prolapse and pelvic floor dysfunction. So with these, I recommend about 10 a day as well. And then hands down, and you can roll onto your back, and we're gonna do one more that I recommend that'll help with your squat, especially if you have a prolapse. Feet flat, hip distance apart, curl your tailbone, roll up one vertebrae at a time, and then curl and slowly roll back down. And when you get to the bottom, give yourself a little bit of an arch and a back bend, and then curl and roll back up. So as I mentioned, a lot of times with a prolapse, we become very tight and guarded in our pelvis, which then does not allow for a very good and comfortable squat. So this exercise is going to help you start to open up and be more mobile in your pelvis. And I recommend about 10 of these a day as well. So the important thing to remember is that a squat is available to all of us in some way, shape, or form. It won't look the same, and we'll all have to manage it in different ways, but I want to encourage you and empower you to know that you can find a squat that works for your body. The exercises that I showed you can be done daily to help you start to feel more confident in a squat position, which then, as we know, will lead to more confidence in just movement throughout your day. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you soon.